Hey Jeff, thanks for your reply to my video. I really enjoyed your questions and it's just nice to have a conversation with you. I'm going to start with your last question because I think in some ways it can be answered more simply. I think when an argument, so the second question you asked was about whether the argument that I made about God causing good things can end up being used in a nasty way to talk about God causing bad things. In particular, you raised the issue of God punishing homosexuality in some people's minds with various nasty things. I want to sidestep the question of whether God punishes us in this life in any kind of straightforward way. But I want to make the point that, in fact, very often the people who suffer the most in this life, the people who really suffer in our world, are not the people who are living bad lives, but the people who are living good lives. So suffering is not, principally at least, a matter of punishment. Why do I say that? Well, think about the fact that suffering is very often the flip side of love. It's the other side of love. So I suffer because I love something, or more usually someone, and then I lose them in some way, or lose that thing in some way. And it might be suffering that's caused by a correct and good love of myself, right? I have certain love, I have a certain good and natural love of myself, and when people hurt me, or when I am suffering in terms of my health, there's a natural extra suffering that goes with that because I care about myself, right, in a good and important way. So I don't actually think most suffering happens as a result. I mean, if suffering happens as punishment from God at all, it certainly isn't the most common and certainly the most acute kinds of suffering that we experience. Suffering actually comes more often to people who are good, or more acutely in many ways, to people who are good, people who are love. The more you love, the more you suffer. And actually, we Christians have the perfect image of that in Jesus, who is the perfect human being and who yet suffers greatly. So suffering isn't, I think, normally, at least, if it ever is, a punishment in the ordinary sense of the word. So, what about your other question, which is, I made a rather quick argument, and yes, I didn't deal with the case. I said God loves us because he brings about our existence, and existence is the prerequisite of every happiness in our lives, and therefore God is wanting our good. But perhaps you might think existence is the prerequisite of every unhappiness in our lives. So why isn't God the cause of our unhappiness? And I want to make an argument that maybe will surprise you, or maybe I hope in a way will surprise you. I want to try to persuade you that good and evil, people often think of them as kind of two sides of the same coin. You can't have good without evil, you can't have evil without good, that kind of yin and yang. I want to persuade you instead that good and evil are related in rather the way, not exactly, but in rather the way that heat and cold are related. So good is to evil as heat is to cold in a certain way, at least in this respect. When you say something is hot, you're talking about something, an actual property of the thing, right? So when you're talking about something being hot, you're saying it has a kinetic energy of its molecules, right? The temperature of a thing is the mean kinetic energy. But when you say something is cold, what you mean is it isn't hot enough. You don't mean that it has some aspect of it that is, as it were, coldness, but you mean that it doesn't have enough heat. And I think that's the way evil works too, or badness works in general. So if I say I have a good washing machine, I'm actually saying something quite specific. I'm saying I have a washing machine that washes my clothes well and gets them nice and clean and doesn't use too much energy and doesn't spill water on the floor, and all the rest is efficient and cheap and reasonably cheap and so on. If I say I have a bad washing machine, well, that's rather more unspecific, and all I mean by saying something is a bad washing machine is, in some way, the bad washing machine doesn't measure up. It lacks something of what it should have. Now, so what I'm saying is, evil is like cold in that it's just not good. It's just not enough goodness, or not enough of what there should be. I don't mean to say that evil is always a physical lack. It might actually be due to a physical, an extra physical thing. So, for example, my washing machine might be full of glue. The glue is an extra component. It's not something missing from the washing machine, but it makes the washing machine bad. Not because glue is somehow has badness in it, but because it takes away something that the washing machine should be able to do, which is to say it should be able to wash my clothes well and thoroughly. Okay, so, and if that's so, and I don't have enough time. I don't have enough time in any of my talks to cover every possibility, any of our chats. But what I'm trying to suggest to you is, if it's true that good is related to evil as hot is to cold, your heat is to cold, then evil doesn't need an individual cause. It isn't that God brings about evil. He brings about what is there, and therefore what is good in itself. Right? The glue in my washing machine is good in itself. It's good glue. It's in the wrong place. It shouldn't be in my washing machine, but it's good glue. And so God brings about the glue in its goodness. He doesn't bring about the washing machine's badness per se. He brings about the glue and the washing machine. So in bringing about existence, God brings about what is there, and in a certain important sense, evil isn't there. It isn't one of the items in the universe in just the way that cold isn't. Now, that doesn't mean evil is unreal. Cold is very, very real. I mean, some parts of the world, people spend a good bit of their lives battling the cold. But that doesn't make cold something, an actual item in the universe. It's just saying that the temperature is not high enough, that there's not enough heat. So I don't think that solves what philosophers call the problem of evil, but it's the first step in thinking about that. So if you want to ask about that, we'll then talk a bit more about suffering and evil. But I think the first thing you've got to see is that there's a certain sense in which God causes what is good and not what is bad, because what is bad is in a certain sense a simple lack. It's things not being what they should be.